Welcome everybody to our one-day retreat, day-long retreat, half-day retreat. Actually, the first time we held this retreat, I called it a half-day retreat and everybody complained. So this is a kind of day-long, there's a whole day. So today this time changed the wording and called it a day-long retreat. And I think that, I've met most of you before. We have a few people that haven't met. And most of the people here, is there anybody here who hasn't meditated before? It's their first time meditating? No? Everybody's meditated before? Anybody here who's never been on a meditation retreat before? Yeah? Okay. A couple people their first time. Yeah, so one of the nice things about meditation, practicing meditation, is that it's something it's very simple, but it's also kind of profound. I remember going on my first meditation retreat, and I think I tell this to people a lot of times. It's I was going on the retreat and had this thought, I hope it isn't too easy. Hope that it doesn't just get too simple for me here. And I remember going on this retreat, and although I was just sitting there, not really doing anything, just watching my breath, I had this really, really hard time. I was struggling a lot. I was I think I tell this to a lot of people, I was the worst one on that retreat. So there was, these old ladies, they were in their 60s, and they were, sitting with at that time I was young. I was 19, and I'd done a lot of martial arts, and I, felt that I was athletic and, strong. And these old ladies, they're in their 60s, they were just sitting there, motionless. And I was in terrible pain. So I ended up shifting around all the time. And it was a Zen retreat, so the lead teacher was a Zen master. And in the Zen tradition, traditionally they hit you if you if you start acting up too much. And so in the West, I think when this particular Zen teacher first came, he would hit people, with this stick. They had this clacker stick. But people started to complain. So he stopped hitting people and just started yelling instead. So they're on the retreat, and I'd be shifting around, and you'd get this yell maintain your focus on your meditation object. Everybody knew who he was talking about. And then, at a certain point in the retreat, I thought okay, I've had enough of this. I'm going to fall asleep. And so so I decided to fall asleep. And that worked out, for one session. I was able to sleep right through it. The bell came. And I was okay, that's all right. But then the following session, I had all this energy. I was awake. And the pain was even worse in my body. So I ended up shifting around even more than before. Hi there, come on in. Yeah, and so so I ended up shifting around even more than before, and so then I think eventually even got more scoldings, and you'd have to go into these interviews, personal interviews with the teacher, and when I went in, my interviews weren't going so well. And so one of the amazing things was that just struggling through this kind of difficulty, had this physical pain. Had mental pain as well. I remember, all these terrible complaints coming up about this retreat, in my mind. It's there's not enough food at this retreat. I'm not getting enough to eat here. And I used to like working out, so this was a 5-day retreat. And then I felt the muscles that I'd been working out to develop were starting to go away because I wasn't eating enough. And so then I would eat more. And now that I had more energy from eating, then the physical pain in my body got worse. And so increased amounts of shifting would continue. And then I started to feel that I wasn't getting enough sleep. So then I would get these complaints in my mind about the amount of sleep that I was getting, and various things. Sometimes people outside the meditation hall. This hall was at College in Spadina in Toronto. Now that building where that retreat center, where that temple was, is actually a condo. But at that time it was a temple, and there was a parking lot right next to the meditation hall. And so people would come into the parking lot and they'd start yelling at each other. and, saying various things to each other. And so these complaints would arise in my mind, like, these people are being loud. I can't stand the noise that they're making. Kind of all these many and various complaints would arise. And so, probably like, by day one, this pain in my body and emotional pain in my mind was just growing. To a point where I felt it's like I've never experienced physical pain like this in my life. That was the thought that I had. And you just have this thought like, well, if this keeps continuing, how am I possibly ever going to make it through this retreat? It's just not, I don't know how I'm going to take it, kind of. I'll probably, maybe die on the cushion or something from this pain. But I made this kind of determination, probably from having, had this kind of ego in my mind that, I was a tough guy. And so being a tough guy, I did not want to quit and leave the retreat. I had this determination, no matter what happens, I'm going to stay through this retreat. And I also had this kind of determination that I didn't want to sit on a, at that time I didn't have any physical health problems. I was just a young man. Maybe now I would have a different perspective, but I had this determination, I'm not sitting on a chair, I'm just going to keep sitting on the floor no matter how much pain I get into. And, again, probably nowadays I would very quickly go to sit on a chair. If I felt like, actually, with that attitude, I ended up injuring myself, later on. But this was then, and I didn't injure myself at that time. And the amazing thing was that going through this retreat, this kind of mental difficulty kept increasing, and physical pain kept increasing. And then this time came, I think it was at the 4th day of the retreat. So just kept going through this retreat, kept feeling this physical pain, kept getting yelled at. And all of a sudden, on the 4th day, all my physical and mental pain just disappeared. Where it went to, I don't know. It's hard to say. How you have terrible physical pain in your body that keeps increasing and then it just disappears. Almost like you've never even sat on the retreat before, and suddenly you're sitting with no physical pain and no mental pain at all. And so this was the kind of profound thing about meditation, is that one of the things that this Zen teacher on this retreat kept saying was that, you're capable of more than you think. You're capable of doing more than you think you can do. So, obviously in the West, kind of being a Westerner, if you've grown up in a Western culture, you all often hear, okay, nothing is impossible. We can do, can do anything. You're capable of doing anything. This is what your teachers teach you. And, it's a positive message to have. But the West, being largely focused on kind of external achievements, this kind of attitude that it's possible to do anything gets focused externally. It's possible for me to discover, or for anybody to discover. It's possible for science to discover like an unlimited source of energy. We'll be able to do that one day. It's possible for science to discover, say, the ability to travel at light speed. This is something that people, most people probably growing up in the West think that's possible. They've had TV shows about it. Kind of Star Trek, it's possible to travel at light speed. Possible to have replicators that will replicate our food. But the amazing thing, at least growing up in the West, that seems impossible is when some emotional difficulty arises. Some difficulty in a person's life. One's partner leaves one, One's face starts to change. You get older, and your physical face is no longer as pretty. People stop paying attention to you in the same way. One has a job that one relies on. Everybody treats you well because you've worked hard to get this very good job. And you're making a lot of money. And all of a sudden you lose that job. And at least, what I found for myself, being a Westerner growing up in this environment, it's possible to do all these amazing external things. But when a difficult emotion arose, this was something that seemed impossible. So, on this retreat, people are talking outside. This is impossible. Can't take these people talking outside. I'm going to leave, They're kind of sitting down and experiencing some physical pain in my body. This pain is impossible to handle. I can't take this physical pain. Or the Zen teacher, somebody speaks to you in a way that you're not used to, tells you that you're not, behaving in an appropriate way, and scolds you and treats you with harsh speech. You're not, kind of as a Westerner, you go into a McDonald's or Tim Hortons, wherever you go, people are like, what can I get you, sir? What do you need today? You can have it your way. And all of a sudden, although you've been taught for your whole life that nothing is impossible, you go to a place and people say one harsh thing to you, that's not even like they're insulting you, they're just telling you to do something so you'll improve, and all of a sudden you're like totally wounded. You just can't take it. This person insulted me in front of so many people, I'm leaving. That's it. It's impossible for me to take this kind of insult. My ego has been too bruised. So although growing up in an environment, where I think that I'm very tough. Whoops, this is cut out. It's no problem. I can still keep talking. Although growing up in an environment where I think that, very tough, kind of okay, somebody on the street, I'm not afraid. I can walk in the woods at night, and even if hooligans come to attack me, I'll fight them off. I'm not afraid of doing that. I'll go into a kind of dangerous situation, kind of dangerous external situation, and regardless, oops, this keeps cutting, No problem. Regardless of whether that external situation is dangerous or not, I'll go into that situation and emerge from that situation safely. Nothing is impossible. But when it came to internal world, all of a sudden it seemed like everything was impossible. Day one on the retreat, little bit of pain is impossible. Little bit of scolding is impossible. Little bit of emotional difficulty, impossible. Can't take these kind of things. So this is where this message of this kind of Zen teacher, you're capable of more than you think, came in handy. Because although Western culture is really excellent, kind of amazing at overcoming external difficulties, most of this kind of attitude can be, in some cases, focused externally, not focused internally. Capable of overcoming whatever external difficulty presents itself, but on the flip side, when a difficult emotion comes, when a difficult experience comes, somebody who we care about treats us poorly, when a difficult thing happens, something that we love externally, that we've worked really hard to get, when that leaves us, all of a sudden this seems like something impossible. So this is where this kind of Zen teacher's message is something that's valuable to have. Whatever it is, we're capable of doing more than we think. Capable of overcoming more than we think. Although our body ages, although these things that are external to us, they come, we've worked hard to get them, although they leave, our mind doesn't have to go up and down with these things. We're capable of doing more than we think. Capable of overcoming more than we think. So this was a kind of lesson that came home very clearly on this retreat. And it's one of the amazing things that happens with the power of the mind over the mind, kind of power of the body over the body. So long as we adopt the same attitude that we have to external things, I'm going to work hard to achieve whatever this external goal is, we take that attitude and turn it inwards, then we can develop the skills that we need to overcome whatever emotional difficulty presents itself. We can develop the skills that we need so that although something external to us that we've worked hard to get, that we love and care about, that we cherish, and that people praise us for, although that external thing leaves us, our mind doesn't have to go up and down with that external thing, because we're capable of overcoming more than we think. This is one of the tricks that the mind plays. It's amazing, Even if somebody external to us, if somebody in front of us, as a Westerner, somebody who's been educated in Western culture, who's lived here for a long time, if somebody external to us came up to us and said, you can't do this, you're going to fail at whatever this is, and we've been trained, okay, I'm not going to listen to this guy. or this person, this woman, whoever it is that's saying something bad to me, I'm going to push through this. But when an inner voice comes up, an inner thought comes up that says, you won't be able to do this. An inner emotional difficulty, some sadness comes up, some anger comes up, whatever it is that comes up, that says, go get angry at this person, go scream at them. Somebody yells at us and we think, I can't take this. This person needs to get yelled at back. This is kind of anger coming in. Think, can't take this. This is where this Zen teacher's message comes in handy. Because actually all of the external difficulties that one faces in one's life, these are basically all just reflections of one's mind. Not to say that there aren't real external difficulties, there definitely are. But it's always us who's interpreting them. It's always the people who experience these things that experience them for themselves. So although I was sitting in that meditation retreat, suffering, struggling, there were ladies who were like in their 60s who sat totally still for the whole retreat. I didn't see them, complaining at all. And I think their interviews were like a lot more pleasant than mine. And so what that means is that although we were all sitting there, just meditating, doing whatever, our worlds were very different. The world in the meditation hall was different for everybody who was there. The old lady who was sitting easily and peacefully, her world was different than mine. The people next to me, their worlds were different than mine. But we all came there for this same purpose, which was to try to find a way to overcome the suffering that arises in our minds. It's for this reason that people come to meditate. It's for this reason that people come to the Buddha's teachings. It's actually for this reason that people do everything. Try to find happiness and to avoid pain. But when the external things don't work, people come, myself, that's what I came for, to try to find another way. Try to find a way that's internal, that doesn't rely on these external things, doesn't rely on getting things, on keeping things, on having people praise us, on having our body be healthy, on having our face be beautiful all of our life. Obviously, these things aren't possible. So being in a room together with people like this can be simple. The instructions are very simple. The meditation instructions are not that difficult. Basically just involves maintaining our focus on a meditation object. There's many more things to it than this. This is the basic training. Bringing our mind back to our meditation object over and over again. So this is simple. But the thing about it that's profound is that the very same voices in a person's head that tell them, look, you can't do this. Tell them, look, go out and get that bag of chips. Go out and yell at this person. Go get angry in traffic. Go get sad when this thing that we loved leaves us. Don't be able to take it when somebody close to us passes away. Don't be able to take it when we lose our job, when we lose our house, when we lose our physical appearance. These same voices that say these things to us, that we obey, are the same voices that tell us, don't go back to your meditation object. So although it seems simple, it's profound. And the reason it's profound is because what we're learning to do is counter these voices. We're learning to go against the grain of the things that cause us to suffer. And these things fight back, by the way. The things that cause us to suffer, they're used to having a nice home in our mind, used to being at ease in our mind. And this is why when somebody hasn't trained their mind, like myself, and go to this retreat for the first time, experience suffering. Just bringing our mind back to our meditation object over and over again, the same things that cause us to suffer, cause one to suffer in the external world, they come up in the mind. The same complaints, the same physical pain. All these things are the things that pull us off outside. And so when one comes to a meditation retreat, one learns to train the mind to bring it back, to refuse to obey these kind of voices. And this is what's profound. It's simple. The instructions are simple, but it's profound. So over the course of the day, on a meditation retreat, the number of things that come up in a person's mind, just trying to do this simple thing, are just enormous. Can be back in a person all of a sudden meditating, okay, it's too loud. All of a sudden meditating, it's too cold, it's too hot. All of a sudden meditating, and back in the childhood time when, some little kid stole our, bracelet, and all of a sudden we're just as angry as we were then. Or sometimes in the course of meditation, a person can experience feelings of ease. This might be the case. Some people on their first retreat, first time meditating, experiencing great feelings of ease, great feelings of happiness, great feelings of peace. And the amazing thing, with either of these things is that the instruction is to keep our mind focused on the meditation object. The reason for this is that we can see in the external world, we grab onto something. Something good happens, a new job happens. We get a promotion. We grab onto the promotion. We become somebody who's part and has this new job. Maybe we somebody new comes into our life, like we get married or something, and extreme happiness, follows. A person's wed, it's kind of a nice ceremony, all these various things. But then, in the course of a person's marriage, various types of difficulties can arise. That goes away. A person, for example, might be able to do many wonderful physical things when they're young. But then, as they get older, actually their bodies start to break down. Actually, I myself, in the last few years, I don't remember, I had a number of physical injuries. I don't remember having them before, But this is the way it goes. And this is why the Buddha teaches, that these things spin around each other. Gain spins around loss. Loss spins around gain. It's because we didn't have the promotion that when we get it, we're happy. It's because we had the promotion that when we lose it, we're sad. It's because we didn't have, one didn't have a partner, that when a partner comes into one's life, they're happy. It's because they had that partner, because they remember whatever good things happened in the past. If something happens that's bad, they suffer. This is the way it goes. Gain spins around loss. Loss spins around gain. Praise spins around kind of non-praise, being yelled at. Fame spins around anonymity. And repute, status, spins around loss of status. All these things spin around each other. Grabbing onto one leads to the other. Grabbing onto the other leads to the other one. This is how it is in the world. So one of the things that tends to happen is that one forgets. Right? When something good happens, it's easy to run out into that, to latch onto it, to call it oneself, to take it as who one really is. I'm this person who has this job. I'm this person who has this face. I'm this person who has these types of emotions, these types of mental capabilities. My experience of the world is this way. People treat me this way. This is who I am. Grabbing onto these things, consuming them. When they change, if they change in a way that we like, we get happy. Or one gets happy, creates a new sense of self-identity. This is great. If they change in a way that we don't like, one gets sad. Whoever one thought one was, that's fallen away. Who I was, I don't have that anymore. I don't have the job, don't have the house. So what we're learning to do when we meditate, when we come here, is to basically have a kind of insurance policy. Now that we learn to have a refuge that's external, that doesn't depend on these external things. We learn to create a refuge for ourselves, right here inside. And this is another thing that's profound about meditation. So although there are many options, many things people could be doing on a day of meditation, instead of meditating, a person could be at the movies, and during those 2 or 3 hours, they might not experience much emotional difficulty. Person could, instead of coming to a temple where you might get food you like, might not, could go out to a buffet and eat whatever food that they like. Okay, that might work out for a few hours or whatever it is, however long it takes to eat. Instead of coming to the temple to meditate for a day, a person could say, go on a trip. Go experience some new sights or new sounds. Right? But one of the things about this, the drawbacks of this, is that no matter how much we consume of these external things, they never satisfy. We eat a whole bunch of food that tastes good. Next time we need to eat more food that tastes good. The same food that used to taste good didn't satisfy us anymore. That's why when we get a promotion, we're happy, but then that promotion becomes normal. We need another promotion to achieve the same level of happiness. We have a wedding, we're happy on our wedding, but eventually that kind of happiness fades. We have to pay bills, do whatever it is. And so that kind of thing is no longer as satisfying as it was at that moment. We have good physical health. Our abilities when we're young, our abilities keep increasing. We're able to jump a certain distance when we're young, and then we get older, we're able to jump further and further. And each time we're able to do that new thing, gain that new ability, the old ability is no longer satisfying. Eventually that new ability becomes normal, just becomes another thing, another thing that we have. The tricky thing about all these various external things is the time comes when we reach 45, 50, 60, 70, all of them start to fall away. All these external things start to fall away. And so if we don't have another refuge beside these things, another refuge that doesn't depend on them, we suffer big. So that's why meditation here and now is an insurance policy. It's something that protects us from the loss of these external things. We learn to develop a joy that comes not so much from consuming, but comes from producing. Comes from learning to focus in on our meditation object. Learning to find a happiness that's internal, that doesn't depend on external things. One of the ironies of this type of happiness is that it's much more satisfying, much deeper, much longer lasting, and much more pleasant than anything that we get externally. So this was the amazing thing. A person learns about this when they keep practicing meditation. When they keep doing this, keep bringing their mind back to their meditation object. That there's a happiness that we can get that doesn't depend on consuming. All it depends on is my ability to focus, right here and now. And that's something that people can't take away from me. So as this retreat went on, kind of kept going with this retreat, this kind of physical pain just disappeared. And on the fourth day, they had these kind of Dharma students. And I thought kind of the first couple of days was not going to be able to make it. They had these kind of Dharma students, these people who are training to be monastics. And one of the masters, we do some prostration sometimes. Would you like to join us? It was kind of the last day before the retreat ended. So I said, okay. And they ended up doing 750. It's kind of where you stand up and bow, and go back down and bow again. Stand up and bow, go back down and bow again. And to my surprise, I was able to join in with these Dharma students, kind of do this kind of bowing. It can take an hour and a half or so. And this is when I thought I couldn't do anything. And then the retreat ended. And what I found, at least going on this retreat, struggling through this retreat, after the retreat ended, although it was very difficult to do, I had this immense sense of buoyancy. Kind of, the things that used to trouble me so much, they didn't seem to trouble me as much after this 5 days of meditation. I never experienced something like that. And then over time, going on these retreats over and over again, I found that this feeling, just doing this intensely, for these 5 days. This is only half day or day long or full day, however you want to call it. But doing this kind of thing for 5 days, I found that kind of tended to last for about 6 months. Kind of doing something like that. It was like a 6-month process for 5 days. And so it was kind of an amazing thing. It's kind of the power of the mind the power of the mind to generate happiness in the face of whatever external environment. And so these are kind of things that one can learn for oneself. There are happinesses that one can get from meditation that one didn't know one can get. There are things, physical pains in the body, emotional difficulties in the mind that seem impossible to overcome, but are not impossible to overcome. This is something that one can learn directly for oneself. Because one practices meditation, this is the thing about learning about the Buddha's teachings, it doesn't just stay in the books. It's not possible to convince somebody who's had direct experience of the happiness that comes from practicing the Dhamma that the Dhamma doesn't lead to good things. This is something they know for themselves. When one gains this kind of knowledge for oneself, they have a refuge that people can't take away. The reason for it is Imagine somebody comes up to you and says, if you go over there, if you go do this work, you go do this job, you're going to be miserable. Nobody's going to pay you. Everybody's going to hate you. Not believing that person, somebody goes anyway, does the work, goes to the job. They find the people there treat them nicely, although it was difficult, and at the end they get paid. So if that same person comes again and tries to tell them the same thing, they don't believe them. Actually, it's just another small voice. Sometimes the voice just leaves. It's not even there, knowing that you don't believe. And this is the same way with the emotional difficulties, with the mental difficulties, sometimes even with the physical difficulties that a person faces. When one learns directly for oneself that these things can be overcome, they can be ended through practicing the Dhamma. One is capable of more than one thinks. Then when these voices come again, one doesn't listen to them. They have no power, less power over a person than they did before. The fear that comes with a difficult emotion, the fear that comes with loss, the pain that comes with loss, sometimes even the elation, the happiness that comes with gain with these kind of things, they don't have to have the same power over a person's mind as they did before. This is the power, this is the true benefit of practicing the Dhamma in line with the Dhamma, of coming to meditate, of making an investment like this. Whatever emotional difficulties arise, I keep coming back to my practice. I keep coming back to the meditation object. One can learn for oneself how far the Buddha's teachings go. Even at the beginning like this, there's so much benefit to be gained. And this is why they're said to be leading onwards. Because when one sees this for oneself, one wants to see how much further they go. What else is there to this? There's this kind of movie, The Matrix, where, I don't know if everybody saw that movie, The Matrix. Anyways, it's an old one, but a goodie, an oldie but a goodie. And there's this scene where there's this man who's kind of show this fellow, this movie about ultimate reality, and he says, okay, you've got a choice, You can take the red pill and you go believe whatever you want. Or you take the blue pill and you can see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. It's kind of this line from Alice in Wonderland. In the same way, coming to practice here, starting out small, whatever difficulties one faces, there's an opportunity to overcome them. There's a way to end them. Whatever suffering there is in the mind is possible to finish. This is something that one can learn for oneself on the small scale, just coming to meditate like this for the first few times. It's something that one can learn on the medium scale, when one's meditation practice starts to bear fruit, when one starts to experience feelings of bliss that basically have nothing to do with external sensual pleasures at all. And it's something that one can know for oneself directly at the end, when one permanently cuts defilements, when they don't arise again. Because this is a true possibility of the Buddha's teachings. It goes beyond just finding a little bit of happiness to finding a happiness that's permanent, to finding a happiness that doesn't change. And so this is what we all come to practice the Dhamma for the sake of finding this. Okay? So I think leave that